tonight. This is quite an honor for me to be here. I really love the idea of giving a keynote for an awesome conference like this. The honor is definitely mine. I really love behavior analysis. This is really, the crux of what I've done throughout my career is use behavior analysis. I'm such a big fan of B.F. Skinner. I almost named my son Burris Frederick Moran, and my wife was like, hell no, we're not going to call our kid Burris. But while I was using all this stuff that I learned in behavior analysis, I was getting an opportunity to get hired to work the Rutgers low-VOS replication project in the early 90s, and I could see how powerful behavior analysis was for folks that were dealing with the diagnosis of autism. But the thing I was struggling with when I was interacting with the families is I was seeing how stressful it was on the adults in the child's life. I could see the marital discord, I saw the anxiety, I saw the depression that was happening, and I said, since I'm in graduate school learning how to be a psychologist, and I am learning behavior analysis, does it work beyond helping children who are dealing with some kind of developmental delay? And so I started a research, and I found that there's an area of behavior analysis called acceptance and commitment therapy. And I jumped into it because I wanted to work with face-to-face kind of psychotherapy with some of the adults who I was seeing were suffering during this particular time. And I learned about acceptance and commitment therapy and its wide applicability. And what I've been doing over the last 8 years is actually using acceptance and commitment therapy on work sites, not only to help improve productivity, but a lot of the stuff I do is actually helping people behave more safely on the job. And now that I'm a member of the American Society of Safety Engineers, not only do I belong to the Association for Behavior Analysis International, but now I belong to the ASSE, it's the safety organization. In order to join that organization, you have to sign a values document that will say, if you're ever going to give a public presentation, you will point out where the fire exits are. So, because I want to be committed to my values, there's a fire exit over that way, there's a fire exit over that way, and you can leave the way you came in. Just leave it in an orderly fashion, don't start any fires, and I think we're going to be okay. So we're going to talk about the Mindful Action Plan today. That's our essential objective for the next couple of half hours that we're having together. And we're going to talk about it a couple of different directions. We're going to talk about how we use it in the clinic so you can understand how it gets applied to clinically relevant issues, mental health issues. I'm also going to talk about how we can use it not only to help people with substance abuse, depression, OCD, chronic pain, medical problems, psychosis. We're also going to talk about how we can use it on the job site. And I want to see if we can use it to help you do your job in a more efficient, effective manner. We know that people who go through specific trainings integrating behavioral science in order to improve their commitments, and that's what we're trying to do today, they show less errors on the job. People who learn how to do the commitment approach that we're talking about today, they make less errors on the job, and that's been replicated. They also show a greater mastery of new training, they have an accelerated rate of adopting new work methods, an increased propensity to innovate, better mental health on the part of the employee, and not a lot of places open up their company to say, I just want to have a company that succeeds at making sure the employees have good mental health. I understand that's not a primary objective, but when people who work for you are happy, more psychologically flexible, they end up staying longer, they probably are going to perform better on their job. And we also see that people who go through commitment training, like the one we're going to do today, show improved work confidence. And so that's what I'm going to invite you to do. See if you can use today specifically for yourself. Can you use it, given the fact that you might want to keep certain kinds of commitments and make sure you have a strong commitment to things that are important to you? I can't tell you what there are. There's over 200 people in here. I want you to see if you can focus on what you would like to do in a more committed fashion. And what I'm going to offer you during this next hour and a half or so is to go ahead and follow through on this mindful action plan. There's enough of these that have been distributed at all the tables. What I'm going to ask you to do is just grab one of them and use it for yourself. Don't worry about writing on it. If you want a PDF of this particular thing to use for yourself, so you can scratch this one up and you can have it on your laptop, print out later, that's fine. I'll give you an opportunity to find out where to access these on the internet later on. Go ahead and use this. Use the Mindful Action Plan or the map. that will guide you to keeping stronger commitments. And what you'll notice about the map right away is that on the right side, you can see it's got a checklist function. What I'm going to suggest to folks is anytime you want to keep a commitment to doing something, it's a good idea to actually make a checklist for it. So this way you follow through on all the action steps that are important for that particular task. There's a pretty neat book called The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, and he talks in that book about how we need to make sure we have a typical reminder, a regular reminder of certain action steps, especially if you're talking about something that has to go in series. And in that book, he talks about how it's required by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, that you have to use a checklist before you take off. So a co-pilot and the pilot have to go through a couple of steps to make sure, one, is making sure all the steps are done safely, and then the co-pilot is the accountability partner, making sure the person is not just pencil whipping their checklist. We have to do the same thing in surgery. The American Medical Association requires surgeons to follow a particular checklist, and a surgical nurse has to be an accountability partner to make sure that we are going step by step. What I'm going to suggest to you is when you move forward on your mindful action plan, use it as a checklist. And what we're going to start, we're going to put together a checklist for doing anything. Sometimes I use it in the clinic with clients who have obsessive compulsive disorder. Sometimes when I work with people who are engaged in hoarding, we'll do a to-do list. But I also use it for my graduate students that I'm trying to help them perform better. I also use it on the job site to make sure people are behaving safely. I'm suggesting you can use it for yourself. Doing something. When you have something that you want to be doing with a certain degree of commitment, you want to start out right in the middle of that mindful action plan and populate it with something that you should be doing regularly because you care about it. You can use the mindful action plan at the beginning of the day. You use it at the beginning of the week. It could be for a monthly checklist. But you put something like this together so this way you're actually writing down what you will be doing. We've got this model that will come back later. We've got 6 things that are going to have to be taught during a lecture about the mindful action plan. And we use this model just to kind of make it a little simpler at the end. So what do you want to be doing regularly? What do you care about? What do you want to commit to do? And can you write that out? I mean, when I'm working with my graduate student, we had to put together a to-do list. What are the things that you're going to do this week in order to make sure you graduate on time, in order to make sure you get the grades that you need to get a good job? And so when we talked, she said, well, I got to keep a calendar and update it daily. That's something I've been remiss on and have missed some deadlines. Contribute to one post to my listserv every week. I want to be out there. I want to be contributing to the organization. I want to be in the community, people knowing my name. I'm going to write for 1 hour per workday to make sure I get my dissertation finished on time. And I'm going to read 1 journal article per month. She wasn't really ambitious with the reading. But that's her to-do list. That's what she's going to put on that part of the mindful action plan. So right in the middle. Just whatever you think you need to do every day, I'm going to suggest you would put that in that doing area on the mindful action plan. And then down at the bottom it says, designing success with performance management. What we'd like to do is leverage the power of behavior analysis to help us keep our commitments. And you'll see right here, it says make sure all the required resources for successful action have been acquired. Make sure you have the stuff that you need in order to be successful. Publicly announce your commitment to meet certain performance goals. It's a good idea to let people know that you're planning to get something done. You're going to do this and have their social support. Now you got to be cautious with this because sometimes if you just publicly announce it to people, that actually can have a deleterious impact on your commitment. When people post to Facebook, hey, I'm going to write a novel in 2016. Like. Wow, I'm a novelist. Yeah, you're going to be a great novelist. And all the reinforcements happen right there, and they self-identify as a novelist. They never get around to actually writing the book because they got a lot of, hey, thumbs up, you're going to be great at doing this. They got the reinforcer for announcing it. They don't actually follow through on it. So that's why I would follow up with alert and accountability partner. Find somebody who you can actually count on to say, yeah, I'll turn in a chapter. I'll give you my prospectus by the end of the week. If I don't give you the prospectus at the end of the week, you can keep the $10 that I gave you in that envelope. You can keep it and you can donate it to my least favorite political campaign. But if I do send it by deadline, then you give me that $10 back and I get to go to Starbucks with it. So we're going to use some kind of accountability partner to help us leverage the power of reinforcement and punishment. Describe the incentives, the performance criteria, and the deadlines for the things that you're going to do on that mindful action plan. And we're going to leverage behavior analysis to do this. We're going to essentially use the performance management paradigm. There are 5 steps that we use in performance management. We want to pinpoint what results and behaviors are desired. We want to measure how are we going to assess desired results. We want to make sure that we're getting feedback. How will the performer know the criteria were met? We're going to reinforce the behavior if it is being met. What consequences will maintain the progress? And we're going to evaluate whether this process is worthwhile or should be innovated. So to pinpoint what results and behaviors are desired, the performer, you, and your accountability partner, somebody that we trust, can collaborate to develop an operational definition or a pinpointed behavior of an overt action that if executed on a regular basis and if it's done well, will maintain the desired productivity. What do you care about and what are you going to do? Let's pinpoint it. Let's operationally define it. And then we got to measure. The performer, that's you, and your accountability partner will team up to create an observational method and maybe a checklist to ascertain the presence or the absence of the pinpointed behavior and agree to record such data regularly. Are you sending in your 1 hour of writing per workday to your accountability partner by 11 p.m.? If you are, that's great. Let's measure it. Let's make sure you're doing it. Your accountability partner should be on that listserv and see that you are regularly contributing to it. So we're going to measure it and see if it's happening. And then we're going to give the performer feedback. The accountability partner gives immediate positive feedback when the performer completes pinpointed behavior correctly. Corrective feedback is given non-judgmentally. We look at what kind of external obstacles got in the way of that performance. And then we're going to reinforce if the person is meeting the objectives. The accountability partner gives social recognition and helps deliver positive reinforcement when the data reach the criteria. So that's what we're talking about with designing success with performance management, talking about the incentives, the performance criteria, and the deadlines. And the last thing we're going to do is when the goals are met, the partnership considers increasing the benchmarks or changing the pinpoints. Like maybe you can write for 2 hours per workday. Maybe you can read 3 journal articles per month. And so we're going to see if we can just change the pinpoint, evaluate whether it can be improved or innovated. So that's the general performance management paradigm that we work with folks. And we put a to-do list right in the middle, and we make sure we've got all the incentives down at the bottom. But there's more to it. We use it not just to help folks do stuff like write more. You can do it that way if you wanted to. But we also use it in the clinic. If I've got somebody who comes to see me who's struggling with social phobia, and this person says, well, what I'd like to do is kind of get over my social phobia. I don't interact with people very much. I'm nervous, I'm shy, I need social skills. We'll do social skills training, but we'll also do some empirically supported treatments for the folks with social phobia. We might do flooding. Flooding is a type of behavior therapy where you put the person in the presence of anxiety-provoking stimuli and you say, engage in certain behaviors like social skills, even in the presence of your anxiety. And this person that we're talking about, the devout Christian, says one of the things I could do is actually sit in the pew at church instead of standing in the back like I always do. I guess being around other people while I pray on Sundays, that's kind of anxiety-provoking for me. Well, God, let's flood that. Let's expose you to that. While you go to church, be around other people. And what else could you do? Well, I can talk to 2 people at this post-service breakfast. Maybe I can start shaking hands and actually just go and interact with people. Thinking about somebody with social phobia, this is actually a challenge for this person. And we might ask the person to listen to relaxation MP3s every day so they learn how to do progressive muscle relaxation and counteract the kind of panic attacks that sometimes happen. Essentially what we're asking the person to do is the behavior therapy. And when you're using this in the clinic, in order to help people out with any type of clinically relevant concern or diagnosable problem, what you're going to want to do is use empirically supported treatments, of course. When you're looking at this model, when we're looking at the mindful action plan, sometimes the things that the person should be doing is the therapy. Just keep this in mind. I'm doing a lot of foreshadowing right here. But the things that your clients could be doing is the therapy. Behavioral activation for somebody with depression, exposure and ritual prevention for somebody with obsessive compulsive disorder, flooding for somebody who's socially phobic, systematic desensitization for folks who have phobias, and so on. Whatever you know works, according to the literature, that's something that you could be doing as a mindful action. Now there's a lot more that we're going to go through, so I'm just going to leave that there. What you do in the clinic to help people is the thing that you'll be doing right in the middle of the mindful action plan. So we figure out what are the things you're going to do to just broaden its use. We talk about helping a graduate student write more and become more professional. We're talking about helping somebody with social phobia. Sometimes I use it in the workplace for individuals who wear hard hats every day. Wear your proper gloves, eyewear, earplugs, lift the material bundles with a hoist, remove the bundling straps with snips, load the equipment correctly, discard the straps in the recycler. I just add that one at the end every time because I want to make the world a better place. They don't necessarily have to do that on their job. So I ask them to do something, and they come up. We're working in a collaborative fashion. What are the things that OSHA says you should do? What should you be doing? So we come up with what we call a job hazard analysis or job safety analysis, and we figure out what are the things you have to do on a regular basis in order to keep yourself safe. But this is important for you. What could you do at this workshop event for yourself, for your profession, for yourself personally? I mean, I'm going to suggest to you to write on your to-do list, go ahead and write, I'm going to eat lunch with people I don't know. You could do that. Just this way, it might be somewhat anxiety-provoking to meet new people, but you're going to broaden your network. You're going to kind of collaborate with other folks who probably have like-minded interests. So eat with people you don't know during your lunch break. Maybe you'll talk to one person from your work community that you aren't very familiar with. You could write that. I have no idea why you have such horrible handwriting. But you can figure this out yourself. At this workshop event, what is the thing you're going to do to make it meaningful for you? What is the thing you'll be doing? And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. You can see there's a lot of blanks up here on this model. The next thing I want to talk to you about is not just what you could be doing, but I want to know what you care about. Because it's hard to make a commitment if you haven't figured out why you would want to commit to it. Starting to do something that you don't really care about is tough. So I want to see if you can articulate for yourself. In that chair right there, can you take a moment to really clarify, what do you care about in this life? We're going to be on this planet for a brief period of time. It's finite. And while we're here, we have to behave. You're behaving all the time. And when you behave, you make choices. You're going to behave this way, you're going to behave that way. What are you going to predicate your choices on? What do you want to do, and why do you want to do it? What do you care about? What kind of choice are you going to make? I'm sure everyone on here knows that since we're all animals, we are pretty beholden to short-term reinforcers. Sometimes we just try to get the easy way out, or get the quick, positive reinforcer. I'm just going to go ahead and eat this high-calorie but really yummy thing right now. But what do you really care about? Short-term reinforcers or long-term values, living a life that's more healthy? So I want to see if you can, describe for yourself, what do you care about? And we can write this on your mindful action plan. You can be reminded every time you use this checklist, if you do it every day, what are the things that are meaningful to you? What's purposeful about your life? And I'm going to ask you a question. If you're willing to do it, go ahead and flip over that mindful action plan on the back. And my question to you is, if you want a Lifetime Achievement Award, if you got recognized for a Lifetime Achievement Award, what personal qualities, what is it about you, what are your personal qualities would you like to be recognized for during the award speech? Not what kind of objectives that you met, but personal qualities. And just as a reminder, here's some examples. Maybe you want to be looked at as an honest person. Maybe you want to be a person who demonstrates green sensibilities to the public. Maybe you want to innovate. Maybe you want to be an adventuresome person. That's fine. Maybe you want to be patriotic. Why you do. What you care about is patriotism to your country. Maybe you just want to be someone who's shown a lot of follow-through. It could be aesthetic qualities. You want to bring beauty to the world. I don't know what you care about. Some people kind of are able to articulate, I just want to create my future vision. What's that vision? And what are some of the other things that you might care about? Maybe like reducing suffering and improving quality of living for people. So I'm actually going to be silent for a minute, 60 whole seconds. I'm going to ask you to write what kind of personal qualities would you want someone to say about you? They knew you cared about certain things during a Lifetime Achievement Award speech about you. Okay, the minute's over, but you can keep writing if you want to. What we're talking about now are values. And what values are is essentially verbal ways of talking about the global life consequences we have. We're only here for a short period of time. And I know I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. In a short period of time, as long as you're alive, you have to behave. And if you're going to behave, you're going to make choices. Choice is just when there's a person or an organism chooses to do one behavior when there are two or more alternatives. Typically, because we're animals, we just go for the short-term reinforcers. We just essentially kind of put a one point on it. We look for the easy way out, the quick, easy jollies, the way to get away from some kind of aversive event. But sometimes, if you can really articulate what you care about, if you can write down what you want your life to be about, you can use this verbally construed global desired life consequence, the way we're talking about it, to forego, to thwart the temptation of short-term reinforcers. Sometimes when you can say, I care about reducing suffering and improving quality of living in my life, that'll help you when you're moving forward in your profession, even when it gets tough. You know, when I'm working with folks at the Medicaid spot that I work in Illinois, some people say, you know, one of the most difficult things I have to do as a counselor is fill out Medicaid paperwork in triplicate. That really sucks. It's a pain. This is annoying. And even though it's aversive, even though it's annoying, even though you could skip it, because you want that particular clinic to thrive, you do the aversive event. You do the aversiveness of it, of that particular behavior. The same thing for almost anything else. You want to make sure that you are maintaining a healthy weight. Yeah, waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym is somewhat aversive for some folks. But can you say, even though it's aversive, I'm still willing because of what I care about. I wrote on my Lifetime Achievement Award, this person was really dedicated to their family and their own health. They wanted to make sure that they were maintaining their health so this way they can be around for their children. When you can articulate what's really meaningful in the long term, sometimes that helps people not skip the important things, even though they're aversive. So what we want people to do is really clarify, what do you care about? Describe your motivation for engaging in your chosen actions. Why you would aim for optimal performance. So I would suggest that you transfer everything you wrote on the back to that front part. Let's talk about your values-based motivation. Because what we've got right now, we've got a to-do list and why you want to do that list. And that kind of reminder, I think, is going to help people engage in mindful action on a regular basis in order to keep their commitments. So we've talked about doing, we're talking about what you care about. There's a lot more to cover. The next one is kind of a culturally deviant topic that I'm going to bring up, but I think that if you learn what I'm talking about, it'll help change the way you respond to certain obstacles to your commitments. One of the things I want to talk about is accepting. Accepting the things that go on in your life that are going to be difficult for you to change. We're using a model of acceptance and commitment therapy. And whenever I teach acceptance and commitment therapy, some people kind of get stuck on the fact that, I don't really want to accept some of the things out there. I want to change them out there. That's fine. When we're talking about accepting here, we're talking about internal factors, psychological experiences. Are you willing to have the emotions that come up when you're doing what you care about? Now that's a tough question if we're not able to talk one-on-one, talking to a whole entire crowd, so you've got different things that you want to commit to. But see if this isn't so, that sometimes when you're doing what you care about, it doesn't necessarily feel fun. You don't feel happy about it. Sometimes it's arduous, stressful, it makes you angry, it makes you sad. It makes you nervous. Trying out a new job, working with a particular client who's having a difficult time, you almost want to quit. You want to do what you care about. So can you accept that fact that it is sometimes difficult to have certain emotions that come up while you try to engage in committed action? See, this is the thing. It's hard to learn how to just accept the way you feel because that's kind of culturally deviant. We're taught early in our life to not have certain types of feelings. Now, to those folks who were in my workshop yesterday, bear with me. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that you heard yesterday. You see, before we're born, we are taught pretty early that certain emotions need to be gotten rid of. And it lasts, that kind of message lasts from our culture throughout our entire life. Even before you're born, what I like to do is when I see a woman who I think is pregnant, I like to ask them a particular question. And before I ask the question, I make sure she's pregnant. And then, once I'm sure, I like to ask the question, what do you want, a boy or a girl? A lot of times a woman says, I don't care if it's a boy or a girl, I just want it to be happy. I'm not saying a majority of the time, but a good chunk of the time I've asked this question, I just want it to be happy. Like happy all the time? You don't want the kid to know the patchwork of human emotions? You don't want them to know about righteous anger, about the injustices in this world? You don't want them to know about sadness when the home team loses? You just want them to be happy. And then when the kid pops out, 6 months later, the kid's just lying there in its bucket, its car seat with a handle on top. And he's having a good time, 6-month-old. He's shaking his rattle, shaking his chubby legs, got a big grin on. He's having a good time. And his uncle walks by and he looks at the kid and says, such a good baby. But then, imagine the kid's crying, wrinkled face, yelling, having a hard time, and he's moaning. And here comes the uncle and he sees it and he just walks away. I'm not saying he calls him a bad baby, but I am saying it doesn't get called good. That emotional sign does not get called good from authority figures. Guess what? He's still a good baby. It's still a good baby. Without the ability of a complex language, it can communicate to the caregivers, yo, I got a load in my pants. If someone doesn't change me soon, I'm going to have a sore bottom. It's still a good baby, but we don't necessarily look at certain types of emotional expression as good. Same kid, 4 years old, hanging out at Kmart with his mom around lunch. She's shopping, trying to get, ready for a big luncheon she's having that day, and she gets up to the conveyor belt, area where she's putting her food up there so the cashier can take it, and the kid's standing in front of the cart waiting. And what do you think the kid is looking at, right? Right? He's looking at the candy, because bastards at Kmart put the candy right at eye level where the kid's going to be standing for a long period of time. And he grabs the candy and he shows Mom, he says, Mom, can I have this? And Mom says, no, put it back. You're having lunch soon. Put it back. And he puts it back, and then he starts crying. And the mom does one of the most irrational parenting moves ever, but it's a ubiquitous way we rear our children. You might have said it to your kids. If you did, forgive yourself. If your parents said it to you, forgive them. People do this one all the time. She sees the kid crying and says, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. People do this one all the time. And if you really tear it apart at its root, what's going on is Mom is saying, I don't like the way I feel. Embarrassed in front of the cashier and my neighbors who are here in Kmart. I don't like the way I feel. Because of the way you feel. Hungry, cheated. But I can't change the way I feel. Even though I've got 40 years on the planet. So you better figure out a way to change the way you feel. Even though you've only got 4 years on the planet. Or I'm going to make you feel what I don't want you to feel even more. It's such a bizarre way to parent. And does the kid get happy all of a sudden? Or does he just get quiet? Right? He just learns that I'm not supposed to show my emotions. 30 years later, hanging out with this clinical social worker in therapy, and the clinical social worker says, why don't you open up a little bit more in therapy? Oh, I don't know. I'm constantly being told I'm not supposed to show my emotions. Same kid, 7 years old, loves to play baseball. But now he's 7 years old, he's actually going to play the real game. He gets to join Little League and play a real game. He's pretty good at it already because he's been playing wiffle ball in the backyard with his dad. He's got good hand-eye coordination. And so he's about to play baseball for the first time. He drags his bat up to home plate. And as he does so, his batting helmet wobbling around on his head, he gets ready to do what he knows how to do, and he's motivated to do it. He's got the knowledge, he's got the motivation. And while he's doing it, all his friends are in the dugout, all his enemies from the other elementary school are out on the field. All the parents are watching on this beautiful spring day. And he's getting ready to do this thing that he knows how to do, and he's knowledgeable and motivated to do a good job. Dad stands up in the bleachers and goes, don't be nervous, son. Okay, I've never done this before in front of so many people. I really want to be good at this. But don't be nervous. Okay, I'm going to try not to be nervous. I don't know how not to be nervous. But Dad's a pretty good coach. He's taught me how to get here. So far, I better listen to him. I'm going to not be nervous. How do you not be 0-1? Now you got something to be nervous about. Because you're trying to control the way you feel instead of just doing it. Accept the fact that you're nervous. Now start doing what you came here to do. All right, but I don't know how to get myself not to be nervous. I'm going to try not to be nervous. All right, I don't know how not to be 0-2. Why do we tell people to not feel the way they feel? Wouldn't it be great if Dad could just stand up in the bleachers and not do that, but stand up and say, swing for the fences, son! Like, show some faith. Tell him what to do. You don't want to be so poetic like that? It's embarrassing. Then just be direct. Keep your eye on the ball. Swing level. Tell people what to do, not what not to feel. Because when you try to get rid of the way you feel, it usually turns into something clinically relevant. That whole entire list that I had, second or third slide, talking about substance abuse and depression and anxiety and OCD, a lot of those problems come from the fact that people just don't want to have their private events. When someone doesn't want to feel the yuckiness on their hands, you know what they do with that private event, that emotion of feeling uncomfortable with this? They wash. You know what they do 2 minutes after they wash? They have an uncomfortable feeling and they wash. They're not willing to accept the yuckiness and accept the obsession. When people get fired and they start telling themselves, I'm a real crummy person, and they start feeling depressed, and they don't like the way that feels, you know what they do? They go to sleep. They take sleeping pills. They crunch Vicodin and wash it down with scotch because it helps them get rid of, for a little while, the way they feel. Because we're taught by the culture that we're not supposed to feel certain things. I just want it to be happy. What a good baby. It's happy. Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. Don't be nervous. This message is pretty ubiquitous through our culture. We're taught not to have certain types of feelings, and it turns into OCD, turns into substance abuse. What happens when that person crunches that Vicodin and washes it down with scotch? Yeah, for about 8 hours, they're not feeling anything. And then when they wake up with a hangover, you know how I hear people sometimes get rid of hangovers? They drink. Wow, talk about making the problem your solution. Wow, I'm going to get rid of my hangover by drinking more. What are you going to do about your Saturday morning hangover? I got a good idea. I got negatively reinforced for drinking, so let's do that again. What's essentially happening is we're teaching people to not be willing to have what shows up in their life. I think our culture is giving a particular message that we're not supposed to accept the way we feel. What if you can have the feeling of nervousness, of sadness, of anger, and still behave effectively? You can do that. Can you accept that you're in this particular situation? What I like to do to demonstrate, the problem with non-acceptance is use these finger cuffs. You've probably seen something like this before. Kind of like a life metaphor. I didn't want this to happen in my life. I didn't ask for this. Crud, I don't want this in my life at all. I know, I'll try to get out of it. I'm not willing to accept being in this, so I'm struggling to try to get out of it. And the more you struggle with it, the more you're unwilling to have a particular human foible, just the part of the life experience. You say, I don't want to feel this. You struggle with it. You drink more, you wash more, you sleep more, you avoid people because you're socially phobic. You do things to get out of feeling this way, and you make yourself more stuck. Because the more you wash, the more you wash. The more you drink, the more you use that as a solution to deal with your hangovers. The more you socially avoid because you're socially phobic, the less likely you're going to build up social skills. So the more you struggle, the stucker you get. You know what you can do? Accept that you're in it, fully, without defending against it. All right, I'm in it. You know what happens when you're willing to be in it? And you just thought, oh, I get out of it? No, that's not what I said. You're just willing to have it. You're no longer struggling. And that's really neat. To not spend your time avoiding what's just a natural human condition. You feel things. You let yourself have it. And if you're allowing yourself to have it for a particular period of time, maybe you can start building up new repertoires because of the wiggle room you're providing yourself, and you get out. And sooner or later, you'll fall back in it. But if you learn how to accept emotions, instead of struggle with them, maybe you can start to get out of them more often. I used to hand these out when I would teach this ACT stuff to safety audiences, Boilermakers, construction workers, miners, and I would hand these out to everybody in the room. And say, if you struggle, sometimes you struggle too much, next thing you know, a whole bunch of people like Boilermakers who break things for a living go pop, 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 and they start breaking my Chinese finger cuffs. And, next thing I know, I'm sweeping up shards of wicker off the plenary room floor after the training. So all these guys destroyed. So I figured out another way to teach people about accepting and the idea of what happens with acceptance. In a part of the world where they still hunt monkeys for food, they don't have a high technology, they came up with a pretty ingenious way to do it. They've got this thing called a monkey trap. They take a gourd, they hollow it out. I usually talk to my Boilermakers and construction workers, miners and oil field guys with this particular example. What happens is they dig out this gourd, and on the back they grind in some holes, and they take those holes on the back and they lace through a vine, and they take that vine and they tie it to a tree. And the next thing they do is they take a banana and they slice it up to little banana chips, and they put it into the gourd, and they put it on the jungle floor, and they just wait. They go up to the trees with their clubs and they wait. And then sooner or later, probably a couple of hours, here comes a monkey foraging for food, and notices that there's something pretty yummy over here. He goes to that gourd, sniffs, reaches his hand in, and grabs the banana chips. And he can slip his hand in because it's big enough for him to put his hand in, but when he grabs the banana chips, he's got his fist clenched around those banana chips. He can't get his hand out. And what the hunter-trappers do at this point is they jump out of the tree and they start worrying the monkey. yelling, hooting, and hollering, and running after him. So the monkey just starts booking with his hands around the banana chips. And he can't get too far because it's tied to a tree with a vine. It starts to wind around this tree while they chase him until finally runs out of slack and he's right up against the tree. And here comes the hunter-trappers and right on the head, and it's monkey fricassee for the tribe that night. See, what's different about behavioral health audiences and blue-collar workers is that you all got silent and are sad. Sometimes when I'm talking to blue-collar guys, they're like, yay! What could the monkey have done to just live another day? Let it go. Can you just let it go? Can you make yourself a little more flexible? Accept the fact that things aren't working out your way. Can you accept it? Just allow that particular thing that you really want to have control over. It's not such a good thing to try to control. Just let it go. Can you let it go? Can you accept that things aren't working out your way, the way that you were taught you were supposed to not cry, don't be nervous. Just accept that you're having this particular thing. Your attempt to control it's not going to work. You don't want to be like a monkey in a trap. Just, I gotta control this. No, have your emotions. If you care about keeping a commitment, sometimes some things that you do are going to be emotionally provocative. And you have to be willing to allow that to be present with you. Our world, our society, especially Western culture, has taught us, don't be nervous, stop crying, I just want to be happy. That message is throughout our day. Working with this one particular Boilermaker crew, got to know the CEO, and the CEO told me a story about what happened when he observed what was going on in the workplace. We had already done one of these workshops and taught them about the banana chip, and the CEO, what he did when he worked with these Boilermakers, he would sometimes spot check them while they were working, and he'd carry around a walkie-talkie. The workers didn't know he was there, but he was listening to 3 people talking on the walkie-talkie. And the first guy says on the walkie-talkie, hey man, me and the crew, we're cutting out of here. I know it's only 2 o'clock, but we're not supposed to leave until 6, but we're pissed off. Everybody here is angry. Procurement and trucking didn't bring the tubes that we needed to do for Phase B. We finished Phase A this morning, but we can't do any of the welding without all that stuff. And trucking has disrespected us again. We did not get all the materials that we need for today. We're pissed off and we're leaving. Foreman gets on and says, hey man, listen, you can't leave. You're not supposed to leave until 6 o'clock. Just start Phase C, start prep work for that. And they start arguing back and forth. No, we're out of here. We're pissed off, we're angry, we feel disrespected. No, you have to stay. Please work on Phase C. And the CEO is listening to this over the walkie-talkie. And he's about to chime in and give this number 1 guy who's talking what for thinking he's going to leave early. But here's a 3rd guy get on the walkie-talkie. And he just gets on the walkie-talkie and says, guy from Alabama, hey man, why don't you just drop the banana chip? And the CEO says about 10 seconds radio silence, and the first guy, who was really angry, just goes, all right, we'll just start Phase C. Can you accept the emotions that show up at the workplace? Can you have them show up to other things that you might want to commit to? This guy was committed to doing a good job, earning a living for his family. Just had that get-her-done kind of attitude, but got so pissed off at that particular time that he was being essentially grinded down by his own emotions. He was essentially hooked by his feelings, being so angry that he wanted to leave work. Can you sometimes just accept things? Allow yourself to acknowledge any emotions you're having without trying to control the emotions. Be willing to simply have those feelings while moving forward with valuable actions. That's part of the mindful action plan. If you're going to move forward on a to-do list, it'd be a good idea to get ready with your emotions. Can you just accept that they're there? So we'll talk about accepting. It's another part of the model. There's another part that we call noticing. And essentially it's like accepting, but more about cognitions. Your own private verbal events, or what we'll just say is thoughts. Can you just notice that you're having thoughts, instead of necessarily getting hooked and dragged around by the nose by everything you think? Sometimes you're not in control of the things you think. You're not. Sometimes you just randomly think things. They might even be ego dystonic. Essentially, you don't like it, but you think it. And thoughts are powerful. Thoughts really evoke and elicit stuff out of us. Language can really be powerful on our emotions and our behaviors. Now, I don't know if you buy into that stuff that I just said. You know, language is automatic. You just have thoughts. No, it's true. You can't help but what you think sometimes. Yeah, I can. Oh, yeah? Well, let's see. I don't know an overwhelming majority of people in this room. I mean, despite the fact that we've been hanging out for like the last hour, you're still relative strangers to me. I don't even know most of your first names. However, I know exactly what you're going to think in 30 seconds. The funny thing is, you've known you your whole life. You have no idea what you're going to think in 23 seconds. I know exactly what it is. If you speak English as a first language, I know what's going to go on between your ears and behind your eyes in 17 seconds. You have no idea, and you're you. It's your mind. You have no idea what you're going to think in 10 seconds. I do. I don't even know your first name. Ready? Mary had a little... I know what you just thought. The world sets us up certain stimulus events in our environment, just make cognitions happen. Keep that in mind. This time, I want you not to think that word. I'm warning you, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say that same phrase again. This time, don't think it, okay? It's a bad thought, so don't have it. Right? Here it comes. For 10 seconds, don't think it. Mary had a little... Ten seconds is up. If you didn't think lamb for the entire 10 seconds, I know it's a big room, but I want to know, is anyone willing to share how they did? Yeah, how'd you do it?
I just repeated elephant over and over
You
again.
went, Mary had a little elephant? How ironic, a little elephant. Okay. Okay. All right, good, good. And then someone yelled out, go. All right, so you went from a four-legged mammal that goes bah and you find on a farm, all the way to a four-legged mammal that you find on a farm that goes bah. It's hard. It's hard to get rid of certain cognitions. Sometimes you have to distract yourself, and that takes you out of the moment. I mean, if you're really trying not to think something, might that have a deleterious impact on your performance when you're trying to like really grind down a particular thought? Like, I don't want to have this thought. And when you go la 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 la, you're probably not really effective at what you're trying to do. And then if you can replace a thought, it's only going to last for a little while. I'm sure on the 11th second, I thought elephant until you said, aha, I didn't think lamb. You know, like you check back in with yourself. It's hard to change your thoughts. And what I challenge you to do is on our way out for our break, in about 45 minutes, I'm going to walk up behind you. And then I'm going to say, Mary had a little, and that'll lead to two things. One, I'll be acting really creepy. And then two, you're going to think lamb. I mean, this time I told you, you know, here it comes, don't think it. But just in a regularly ecologically valid scenario, it's hard to stop yourself from thinking certain things. Now, this isn't just a game, like a psychology parlor trick or something like that. Sometimes the things that we think are problematic. Sometimes we've got self-denigrating thoughts. Sometimes we've got rationalizations. Oh, it's okay if I just drink my third Coke for the day. Even though I value what I want to do, what I care about is follow a better, nutritious guideline because I care about my children. I would like to do what I care about. Can I notice that my mind is telling me it's okay if you have your third Coke for the day? Notice that you had that thought. Can you just notice that you're having those thoughts? Nice. But there's another issue. Not only your thinking is automatic, it's also powerful. Words have significant power over us, and we think certain words automatically. That's kind of scary. Now, I don't know if you think that, you know, words are this powerful, but what I'd like to do is just show you what I've got here. And it's a pretty fancy cutting board that I got from Bed Bath & Beyond. And on this cutting board, I'm going to put this lemon that I got from the produce mart right up the road. It's pretty juicy lemon. It's got a lot of heft in it. I think it's overripe even. Even the folks up front can smell the lemony freshness off this overripe sour fruit. And what I'm going to do with this lemon is just thud it right here on my cutting board. And now I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to cut it in half. And as soon as I slice it, it just starts to spray out some lemon juice wafting in the air. The citric acid is floating through the air. You can smell the sour fruit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it down. And as I start to cut it down, all of a sudden there's this big puddle of lemon juice just splayed out on the cutting board. I get it all the way down to the bottom, it starts to rock back and forth in the puddle. And I'm going to take this half. And what I want you to do is I want you to take this half of the lemon. So we've got the lemon, we can notice the lemon juice dripping between our fingers. And we'll put it up against our lips. And we're going to squeeze that lemon and start drinking in the sour lemon juice. Notice the tingles on the sides of your mouth. And squeeze it again and really suck down that juice. And now, your whole tongue, just lick the rind. Now, how many people in here are salivating a little bit more than they were like 5 minutes ago, right? Most people are. And guess what? As far as I can see, there's not even a lemon in the room. There's no lemons in the room. That's how powerful words can be. Well, I can talk about lemons and people, they have a reflexive response. It evokes and elicits behavior. Sometimes that can happen privately. You're just thinking things and it has an effect on you. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can learn to just simply notice behavior. But in order to learn that, I'm going to do a little group exercise. You don't have to. This is your informed consent disclaimer. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if everyone does it, it's not going to be a problem, I think. So all you got to do is repeat after me. Ready? Lemon, 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 louder, lemon, 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 lemon. What happens to the word? Starts to sound like a broken copier machine, someone said. No, and it starts to lose its meaning. I mean, is anyone drooling right now? No. But you said lemon like 40 times. You said it. What's funny is if you said it for like another 2 minutes, you'd actually get cotton mouth. Your tongue's just flapping in the breeze. Your tongue dries out while saying lemon. So check it. Words don't have to be impactful. I talked about lemons in one context, and a majority of you probably salivated because of that. And it was just words I was presenting. No citric acid was placed on the receptor sites of your tongue to elicit the salivary response. It was just words, and you salivated. And then you said the word 40 times, and you dried out your mouth. So words don't have to be powerful. What if we could just start to notice that we're having thoughts? What if some things that happen and go, oh, thank my mind for that. I had the thought that I wasn't going to go to work today. I noticed that thought, and now here I am driving to work. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean you have to listen to it. I tried to teach this in the clinic to a client who was struggling with scrupulosity OCD. Scrupulosity OCD is when you are obsessive and compulsive about perhaps being blasphemous. So you're obsessed with, maybe I'm going to say something blasphemous about my religion, and then she compulsively self-flagellate. Essentially what she used to do was she would, after she'd think something like, St. Joseph is a jerk. So that was her blasphemous thought. And so she would kneel down in cigar boxes filled with unsharpened pencils, like dozens of them, and she would kneel down in them so they form-fitted around her knees, those wood kind of like angles, and then she kneeled in front of a crucifix and said the rosary every time she had a blasphemous thought. And so we started to work together. Her pastor came in, we did some interdisciplinary work, and we wanted to talk about the fact that she can notice that she's just having thoughts. Can you just notice that language pops up? You can't help it sometimes. And can you just notice it for what it is? It's just a thought. And she agreed to do a particular type of exposure exercise. I got some index cards, and then, the first time I got an index card with her, I got a pencil, I said, let's play tic-tac-toe on this particular index card. With informed consent. She said, yeah, let's do it, okay? And I won. And I put the tic-tac-toe card on her lap. And she was like, okay, I'm fine with this. I said, can I put another index card on your lap? Yeah, no problem. So I did some squiggles and put them on there. And she goes, yeah, I can do this, no problem. You willing to have, why are you willing to have this index card there? It's just pulp and paper and graphite, that's it. It's just graphite and pulp. Yeah, that's right. So I wrote out some Greek symbols, and I wrote the word cow, then I wrote the word window, and I said, can you have this? Yeah, I get it. You know, I get what you're saying about noticing. It's just graphite. It's just pulp. I said, okay, I'm going to put another one on your lap. Okay, that's fine. No problem. Yeah, why? Why is it no problem? It's just graphite. It's just pulp. I said, oh, cool. I'm going to put this one on your lap. Boom! She knocks off the whole entire stack. Why? Because it's blasphemous. But guess what? Look at what it is. It's this. Just with different areas on the graphite, on the pulp that the graphite is written. She was able to simply notice, hey, it's just graphite, it's just pulp. But when it was written like this, all of a sudden, she wasn't willing to just notice it. Can you just notice that you're having fun? You notice this fine. You were perfectly fine with this. Can you allow yourself to simply notice that it says this instead? You were fine when it was like this. It's the same thing. It just happens to be where the graphite is spaced. Can people learn to just notice things for what they are, specifically, not getting wrapped up into anything about the verbalization? You can have thoughts and not necessarily get wrapped up into it. It doesn't have to impede you from behavior. I can't raise my right hand. No matter what I do, I couldn't possibly raise my right hand. Well, there's verbalization going on, but then there's behavior and it's counter. And you say, well, you said it out loud, you're not thinking it. Okay, this time I'm thinking it. If I don't raise my right hand, in 2 seconds I'm going to die in a fiery car crash on the way to the airport tonight. Sorry, Aaron, for giving me the ride, right? It was my larynx moving. It was my tongue moving. I was exhaling so sounds bounced off the walls. You don't have to be beholden to everything you say to yourself. Can you just notice? You can't help what you think. Yeah, I can. Mary had a little. You can't help it. Some things, that's just a silly thing. When you walk into work, when you see an old person that you used to date, when you walk into a supermarket where you previously had a run-in with somebody that you didn't like. The world is saying Mary had a little and you think lamb, except the world is saying, hey, there's your ex. And you think, God, that guy's a bastard. I want to get out of here. And you got to go shopping anyway? You can go. You don't have to be beholden to what you're telling yourself. So I want to see if people can engage in noticing. Prepare to simply notice thoughts that arise while moving forward with your valued actions. Let those thoughts go if they're not helpful. Treat distracting thoughts as disconnected from action while choosing to act in a meaningful manner. That's what we're trying to do with acceptance commitment therapy or acceptance commitment training. Can you just prepare to simply notice the thoughts? Just because you're having a thought, I don't want to go to work today. This client's never going to get any better. My boss is telling me a whole bunch of stuff that I don't want to listen to. Maybe you can just notice those thoughts and still follow through on what you care about. So we still got 2 more things in this model to talk about. I'm going to talk about an exercise called the I am exercise. I think it helps people with their self-identity, and sometimes people self-identify, and it has a restriction on their actions. What I want to ask you to do, if you're willing to do it, is go ahead and turn that mindful action sheet over again. And imagine you're filling this in. Imagine you are actually going to take the easiest fill-in-the-blank test ever. Just write it in. I'm going to write in, I am a psychologist, I am standing, and I am happy. Now, you write down three things. Just take about a little while. You're not going to have to turn it in. You don't have to read it out loud. Don't copy off the person next to you. Imagine you were actually writing this particular exercise on the sheet right here. And what I'm going to ask you to do is take a look at what you wrote. Take a look at all those three things. Psychologist, standing, happy is what I wrote. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just cross out the top one. Whatever it is. I'm going to cross out I'm a psychologist. Now my question to you is, now that you cross that out, are you still you? And if you wrote alive, okay, you busted my exercise. Are you still you without that particular descriptor? Like I crossed out, I'm a psychologist. Yeah, I am a psychologist. That's not cool. That's not me. It's just what I do. You know, I mean, right now I've got a bunch of knucklehead interns this year. They're probably doing something illegal or unethical back in my shop. And I'm going to lose my license. And I won't be a psychologist anymore. But I'll still be me. I'll still be who I am. So I'm not the roles I play. Are you that? Can you let that go? Cross out number 2, whatever you wrote for number 2. I wrote, I am standing. Okay. I'm still me. So I'm not my behaviors and I'm not my roles. Are you still you without whatever you wrote on that second one? And cross out the last one. I wrote, I am happy. And I am happy. I'm at this cool conference right now. Of course I'm happy. But Aaron and I are going to get into that fiery car crash a little later. And I might not be happy at that time. But I'll still be me, I hope. Are you still you if you cross out that last one? We specifically are not any one descriptor. We're not. What's still on the page that's true? I am. I am, period. For people to get this, if we had more time, I'd really love to delve into this. To get into this, it's a profound realization. I am, period. Subject, verb. You got a full sentence there. It's so profound, the idea of I am. To let everything go and not get wrapped up in some self-identity stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any self-identity, but be careful, because sometimes it leads to things that squash your ability to make a commitment, because you identify a certain way. It's profound for somebody to just be able to say, I am, period. Now I'm going to make a choice from there to behave the way I care about. I'm going to do what I care about, because I just am. I'm not going to let some of the things I tell myself impede me from doing some stuff. I am no good. I am too stupid to run this particular program. I am not nearly as experienced as I need to be in order to get the understanding of how to do this particular job. Can you let some of that stuff go? You just are. Now, do what you care about. Don't let yourself get hemmed in by the ways you talk to yourself. It's a profound idea to be able to just let that stuff go. It's so profound, the phrase I am, written in the Old Testament in Hebrew. The word is Yahweh, and certain religious sects can't even pronounce it or write it out. It's such a profound idea. It's a little more complicated than that spiritually, but I am, period. Profound. What if you can just allow yourself to realize that you don't have to be hemmed in by your words to yourself? I don't like to give this out to all my clients. Some people say, I don't want to cross out stuff like, I don't like crossing out I'm a father. I don't want to cross that out, because I'd still be me, but I'd be a miserable me. I get it. You know, some people don't want to cross out Muslim or Christian. I get it. Some of the folks might have had difficulty with it. That's okay. So for those folks that I know will struggle with crossing stuff like this out, I just give them a different one. Not 3, but 100. I am 100. And then I ask them to do it, and they seem to be okay with it for a little while. I am, and then, I am a woman, I am, happy, I am, and they get down a little bit further, they get down to around, 30, I am sick and tired of this bullshit. And then, they conflict with each other. They said I am happy, and over here it says I am bored. Wow, so if you were to come up with 100 I am statements, you'd see that they conflict. You'd see that it's not you. They're just words that you have in certain contexts to describe a state, an emotion, a role, a sensation, a thought, an emotion, feelings, part of your body. I can declare I am 6'3". I am 6'3". But Aaron and I are going to get in that fiery car crash, and I might become a double amputee, and I'm going to be 5'1". Sorry to keep jinxing you, man. So I'll be 5'1", I'll still be me. So you're not your body. You're not your emotions, you're not your sensations, you're not your urges, you're not your thoughts, you're not your roles. Just you. And from there, can you just choose to do what you care about? Notice you're being influenced by any unhelpful self-descriptions. Let go of any problematic thoughts that you're believing about yourself. Got one more to talk about in order to bring it all together. And the last thing I want to talk about is being in the here and now. The here now aspect. Acceptance commitment therapy and acceptance and commitment training is wedded to this movement of mindfulness, helping people be in the here and now, helping people focus on what's going on in the present moment. Now, when I'm working with some individuals, they might not really dig the idea of mindfulness. So I try to get away from it, and I just end up calling it situational awareness. So if you have some kind of negative connotation to mindfulness, I'm actually just talking about situational awareness. It's an area in industrial organizational psychology that is about being present with the current moment, focusing on a commitment, even if your emotions and thoughts are distracting you. That's situational awareness. And what I'm going to ask you to do, if you're willing to do it, is go ahead and engage in a situational awareness exercise with me. So go ahead and get into a nice, comfortable position in your seats. If you've got anything crossed, your arms or your legs, probably be better for your circulation to uncross them. Go ahead and take a nice, full, clean, deep breath. And as you exhale, close your eyes or affix your gaze on some part of the room. And what I'm going to ask you to do for the next few moments is to do one single, solitary behavior exclusively. The behavior is attending to your breathing. Notice what it feels like as you inhale and exhale. Notice your chest rise and fall. And remember what the exercise invited you to do. One single solitary behavior exclusively, attending to your breathing. So if you're thinking things like, this isn't how I learned how to do mindfulness, you're not attending to your breathing. Notice that you had that thought, whatever thought you might have had. And see if you can imagine it just typed out on a placard being carried by a toy soldier in a parade. There goes that thought. Now bring yourself back to attending to your breathing. Right here, right now, you are focusing on a commitment in the present moment to do one single solitary behavior exclusively. Maybe some other thoughts came up. How am I going to apply this to my clients? This is a weird exercise. Notice that You're thinking about the future. Notice that maybe you're making judgments. Can you notice thoughts about the future, about the past, judging things, and just let them go? And bring yourself back to the commitment to do one single solitary behavior in the here and now, being situationally aware of your breathing. Let those thoughts go too. They're just thoughts. Let them go. Bring yourself back to your breathing. Let those go too. Go ahead and take a nice, full, clean, deep breath, and as you exhale, relax. If you want to keep commitments, this mindfulness stuff that's been going around can help with it. Some of the things that impede us from following through on the stuff that's important to us can be our urges, our sensations, our thoughts. When you learn about mindful action, like that particular breathing exercise, but there's other types of exercises that you can do, like a sitting meditation, just noticing your sit bones against the cushion or against the floor that you're sitting on. You are essentially teaching yourself to commit to doing a single behavior in the current moment, even in the presence of obstacles that get in your way, your thoughts, your urges, your sensations, thinking about the future, thinking about the past. What's important about it, to change it up a little bit, is being in the here and now is tough for us. 47% of the day, 47% of the day, your mind is about there and then instead of the here and now. We're thinking about the future and the past 47% of the day. What mindfulness exercises do is they help us expand the duration for how long we can attend to the situation, attend to a particular behavior. That whole weird exercise that we did for about 3 or 4 minutes, you were in the present moment. The invitation was to be in the present moment with a particular behavior. Can you gravitate that to something else? That was a mindful action that you did. But can you apply that particular skill? If you build it up over a period of time, if you do mindfulness exercises on a regular basis, it will help you have a skill, a repertoire of being in the present moment, committing to something, not being beholden to your distractions. Which would be nice, because 47% of the day, people get pretty distracted. Now, I don't know if you believe this particular number, but if you think it's too high, then you and I aren't driving on the same roads. Because I think this number is too low. I think people are distracted more than 47% of the day. Maybe you've had a particular mindless experience in your life. Have you ever been driving down the road and you know where you're going? And you're motivated to get there, just like the kid in the batter's box. The knowledge was there, the motivation was there. You know where you're going to your friend's house. You've been there before. And you're motivated to get there. Your friend's having a party. I can tell by looking around the room, you folks like to party. So you got the knowledge, you got the motivation, you're driving down the road, then as you're driving down the road, you're like, oh snap, I'm supposed to get off in that exit like 2 miles back. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, the Department of Transportation sucks. The sign fell down, that's why I missed it. Nah, it was there. It was right there. The cue for action can be in your environment. The motivation can be there, and the knowledge can be there. And still, we can sometimes engage in suboptimal behavior. And I'm suggesting that you can help not miss important cues for action so you can follow through on your motivation and your knowledge. We can become more situationally aware, but it requires exercise. I'm going to suggest, and I'll show you some ways to get resources to help you with this, I'm going to suggest that if you truly want to build up stronger commitments in your life, that you actually do mindfulness exercises. You know, if someone were to tell me that they were weak at something, like I don't have the intensity to lift things, I would tell them you have to exercise. And I'd ask them to start out small. if they told me that they needed to build up a certain level of strength at something, I say, all right, let's just start out small. Every day this week, let's just get a 5-pound dumbbell and just start curling and see if we can get to an 11. And maybe on the first day, it's gonna be like 3, 4, that's all I can do. Okay, come back the next day. 6, 7, okay, come back the next day. 2, that's all I got. Okay, muscle atrophy, drink protein drink, come back the next day. And keep doing it. Keep doing a simple, circumscribed set of behaviors on a regular basis, and maybe by the end of the week, you'll bang it up to 11. Boom, 11. Great. We're going to do something crazy. Because you asked me to help you with the intensity, the strength of helping you with a particular weakness. I'm giving you an exercise. I'm going to double it. We're going to go all the way up to 10 pounds. Keep doing it at 10. Until you get up to 11 curls. Then we're going to do something crazy. We're going to double it again. We're going to go up to 20 pounds. And stay at that until you can get up to 11 curls. And the next week, we're not going to double it. I'm not going to try to turn you into Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's just bump it up to 25, but stay there. Get used to every day exercising your biceps so you can have the strength, the intensity to deal with this and, essentially get rid of that weakness. Engage in a circumscribed set of behaviors on a regular basis that build up your strength. And we're not just doing the exercise for the sake of doing the exercise. Sometimes what we want to do is do the exercise so that it can become conscripted to an ecologically valid challenge. Let's say this person drives home and they pull into their garage and their spouse or their roommate yells out, "Hey, help me out with the groceries, they're in the station wagon." Who drives the station wagon anymore, right? They're in the minivan. And the person goes over and the world is challenging this person now. They can walk over to the minivan and be like, boom, I got this. I got this. The world has challenged me, but because I've been exercising, I'm no longer weak at it. Maybe 2 months ago, I just would have went over and be like, I'm just going to grab this Pringles can. But now you got it. Boom, I got this. So we're not here to talk about biceps. We're here to invite you to actually take up a mindfulness exercise practice. Just start out small. Just start out 1 minute a day. See if you can engage in a mindfulness practice. And you're going to get distracted, just like it's going to be hard to do the curls for somebody who's weak. If you're not used to focusing on a committed action over a period of time, you probably get distracted. But keep at it, and maybe you can get through an entire minute just paying attention to your breathing or feeling your sit bones. And what we're going to do, we're going to double it. Oh my gosh, 2 minutes a day for an entire week. The week after that, we're going to double it again. 4 minutes. 4 minutes a week. Sorry, a day for that week. Just pay attention to your breathing. Commit to focusing on something in the present moment. Why? Because we're going to expand the duration of your attention span. We're essentially trying to help you be in the present moment. And then the week after that, I'm not trying to turn you into the Arnold Schwarzenegger of Zen Buddhism. Just go to 5. And spend 5 minutes a day, but every day, giving yourself the skill of situational awareness. Build that up. Why would we want to do that? Because someday you might find yourself in an ecologically valid situation that challenges you. And you're going to be like, boom, I got this. I'm not going to get wrapped up in my emotions, my distractions, my sensations, my urges, my thoughts about the future or the past, an idealistic way of thinking or a judgmental way. I'm going to allow myself to have the strength and intensity of just dealing with the thoughts that are showing up while following through on what I care about right here, right now. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give people that kind of skill. You can do lots of different ways. You can walk around the parking lot if you want to and just listen to your shoes. Your steel-toe boots is what I ask my guys who are Boilermakers. Just listen to your steel-toe boots as they're clapping on the asphalt. And just stick with that for an entire minute or 1 lap around your hotel room. Just being in the present moment. And I stole that from the Zen Buddhists. The Zen Buddhists say, as you walk through the fields of life, notice as your footpads kiss the earth. But if you think I want to say that to Bubba the Boilermaker, you're crazy, right? Just notice your steel-toe boots clapping on the asphalt. Make anything about being mindful. Can you be situationally aware? Spend 5 minutes a day. Build up to 5 minutes a day. Just noticing what your coffee tastes like. Just for 5 minutes, when you have the urge, well, I have a role, I'm the director around here, I have to write some emails and some memos. Notice that you have that role proclivity. Well, I don't really feel like doing this. It's uncomfortable to just sit here and relax. Notice those thoughts, accept that feeling, be in the here and now. That's a coffee stain. And that's the Zen circle. Kind of interesting that they both kind of have the same shape. Center your situational awareness on what you're doing. Notice what's happening here and now. Rather than getting wrapped up in events not in your present control, let go of these distracting events. Focus on what's relevant to your actions. What I'm going to ask you to do is just one more mindfulness exercise. It's just going to take about 2 minutes. I want you to get into a position. I don't care if it's comfortable or not. Go to bed and take a nice, full, clean, deep breath as you exhale. Close your eyes. And then simply focus on the music. Simply listening to it. Noticing thoughts and distracting thoughts, judgments of it. Bring yourself back to the sensation of listening in the present moment, in the here and now. And take another nice, full, clean, deep breath, and as you exhale, open your eyes. What was that experience like for folks? If everyone want to share, big room. Yeah.
It was fun. I was dancing with my daughter.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. It was fun. Okay. Anybody find themselves getting wrapped up into thoughts, judgments? This music sucks. This music's awesome. Either way, what we're doing when I'm working with individuals who are struggling with being in the current moment, especially when I'm working with folks who have a diagnosis of a developmental delay, a lot of times they seem to be reacting good to mindfulness exercises using the music. Essentially, what we're trying to do with an exercise like that is commit to something. The theme of today's, presentation for me is to help people learn certain skills around committing. Can you say, for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to engage in one single solitary behavior exclusively. I'm going to commit to the behavior of listening. And I'm going to notice distractions. I'm going to notice that I get caught up in judgments. I notice that I'm planning what I'm going to eat for lunch today. And then, can you bring yourself back to the commitment of listening? This whole stuff that's around now with mindfulness, it's not just for Zen Buddhists and Taoists and Eastern philosophers. It's a secular skill that I'm going to invite you to really check out. It can be good for building up your own commitments. Some people say, man, what you're teaching is really, missing out on the spirituality of Zen Buddhism and the Eastern philosophy. What you're doing is, what some people have called mindfulness. I get it, you know. I'm not asking people to shave their head and go live in a bamboo hut wearing a purple robe, you know, and become vegetarian. I'm not. Because I want to make it culturally relevant. I want to be able to teach Bubba about situational awareness. I don't want to see Bubba in yoga pants. You know? I just want him to practice being situationally aware. Essentially, I want 80 billion served. I want more people to get this stuff. They don't have to join, you know, a monastery. They don't have to get a yin-yang tattoo in order to practice situational awareness, being in the here and now. So, we've talked about all 6 of them. They all interact with each other. It's a whole entire model. They all interact with each other. What I like to do is I just flip it. The ACT model essentially looks a little bit different. I flip the North and South Pole and essentially like to talk to my clients about this who want to make a commitment. I am here now, accepting the way I feel, noticing my thoughts while doing what I care about. That essentially leads to mindful action. If that's something that you want to be more mindful about certain actions, you want to be committed to certain things, you probably are going to benefit from these skills. Being able to say, I am here now, accepting the way I feel, noticing my thoughts while doing what I care about. Imagine a workforce that was like this. Imagine your clinic filled with employees that are able to show up, to punch in the clock and say, I'm here now. I'm going to accept the way I feel, I'm going to notice the thoughts I have, and I'm going to do what I care about. Acceptance commitment therapy is impactful. We've got some pretty good data on it, but I want to show you a client that I once had, and I worked out with her, with both of the people that you'll see, this whole entire mindful action plan when I only had a day to work with them and prepare them for cleaning out their house because they engaged in problematic hoarding. So check out what happened.
This is my identical twin sister, Patty, and she has a temper.
This is my identical twin sister, Phyllis, and she's stubborn. I'm the older twin, and I'm only 10 minutes older, but I consider myself the boss. I knew she was going to do that. I knew she was going to do that. And basically, we know we've got problems and difficulties.
Yeah, she likes to buy more tubs of beads than she actually needs to buy at one time.
Who buys them?
Well, you buy more than I do.
Well, our house is very messy. We've got a lot of things in there. Some of it's good things, some of it's not good things, some of it's trash, but things kind of got out of control over the years.
This is the living room.
Slash bed.
Yes, slash bedroom.
It's probably a year and a half since we saw the floor, and it's carpeting, and I don't like it. I don't like carpeting. I like hardwood floors.
She likes hardwood floors. So when you work on Ordinary Live, you are going to clean out their house. The hunks hauling junk are going to come the next day, and we have to prepare them. I mean, very quickly, to say this, very quickly, the county was just going to decimate their house. So they said, let's call in Ordinary Live. They'll hire hunks hauling junk. We'll clean it out. We'll hire psychologists to prepare the person to participate in cleaning out. So I had the mindful action plan. I had the woman for about 2 hours the day before. We went through mindfulness, we went through acceptance, and then this is how it turned out. So what's going on, it seems to me, is that you're upset because just in general, your house is being cleared out really quickly in order to help save the house from being condemned. So this way you can continue to live there.
But they were supposed to let us see what they were taking, make sure they didn't take some of the stuff, and I know they took stuff they weren't supposed to take.
Right. We talked about this being potentially upsetting. That today was going to be aggravating, probably kind of stir up some emotions. And so the question is now, are you okay with these emotions?
At the moment, no.
Okay, understandable. Because it's upsetting and you don't want to feel upset.
No, actually it's pissing me off big time.
Okay? Yeah. Being pissed off is a natural reaction to what's going on here. But do you see the value in what's happening? They're trying to save the house based on your guidelines. Do you want to get back to what you were doing before?
Yes.
All right.
Do you want to get back to doing what you were doing before? Did you first talk about values? Talk about, just being upset. We talked about noticing, just in like a couple seconds. What we talked about in order to prepare for that clean-out day was being able to say to herself, I am here now, accepting the way I feel, noticing my thoughts while doing what I care about. She was pissed off and she stopped cleaning, she stopped participating, but then once we ran through it and reminded her about this mindful action that she was going to be engaged in, she was okay with it. She went back and started to participate in the hoarding clean-out day. So it has an effect on folks. Be able to have this checklist to get ready to notice if you're being influenced by any unhelpful self-descriptions. Center your situational awareness on what you're doing. Allow yourself to acknowledge any emotions you are having. Prepare to simply notice thoughts that arise. You figure out what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, and make sure you leverage performance management and behavior analysis to support it. Essentially, we're using the mindful action plans so this way people can engage in purposeful, present-focused, committed responses, maximally influenced by their relevant stimulus events and unimpeded by private events, their thoughts, their urges, their sensations, their self-identity. If you want mindful action, I'm suggesting that you would want to use some kind of checklist like that in the workplace, when you're hanging out with friends, when you're trying to do some kind of endeavor that's important to you. If you want, what you would check out, or I'm going to suggest you check out for more mindfulness exercises, is I have a website called Building Safety Commitment. I'm not trying to sell you the book. This isn't obviously a safety conference. But I have a safety book, and on that particular website, I've got a bunch of mindfulness exercises that I'm going to suggest you check out. If you build up the strength, build up the mindfulness, build up the ability to be in the here and now, your situational awareness, you're going to expand how long you can pay attention to the present moment. Guess what? The present moment, it's the only time you can behave. The only time you can engage in any action that's important to you. If you want to do what you care about, now's the only time you can do it. But 47% of the day, your thoughts are there and then, instead of here and now. What if you could practice mindfulness on a regular basis, expanding the duration on how long you can attend to a particular commitment? Learn how to accept the emotions that show up while you're doing a mindfulness exercise, noticing the thoughts, and coming up with that I am experience while you're doing mindfulness, noticing that you have your self-identity showing. If you do have other types of questions, concerns, issues, you want more resources, there's a bunch of contact information up there. Contextualscience.org is a really cool organization for behavior analysts. If you're interested in acceptance and commitment therapy, you can go to activepractice.com and learn a little bit more about it. I have a podcast about acceptance and commitment therapy, and there's the URL for something like that. And if you want to email me and learn more about acceptance and commitment training, ACT, anything that I talked about, want the resources that I mentioned, then feel free to email me at pj@pixslide.com. I really appreciate everybody's attention and your attendance. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.